Welcome, everyone, to the Girlfriend Book Club's monthly discussion. I'm Shelley Emling, the executive editor of the Girlfriend newsletter. I'm also the moderator of the Girlfriend Book Club. So nice to see everybody again this month. The year is flying by. For September, the 90,000 or so members of the Girlfriend Book Club chose Sandwich by Catherine Newman. And I'm so glad that you did. As always, you picked a winner, which I devoured over one weekend, and I absolutely loved and related to so much. So we're thrilled that tonight we have the author, Catherine Newman, joining us. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm so happy to be here.
So first of all, I have to say, I have not related to a book this month this much in a very long time. And I have 3 kids in their 20s. And I just want to say the one scene that I related with almost more than any other, although I related to a lot, was when you picked them up and they were in the back seat of your car, and you look around and you look at them and you're just all smiles because they're all together, and which is so rare, as you know, when they get into their 20s.
Oh, I know. We just had the kids home for the weekend over Labor Day weekend. Both my kids in their 20s were home. And I literally have a crick in my neck from leaning around in the car to grin at them.
So where did the idea for Sandwich come from? I mean, obviously you love Cape Cod. Is it based on your own family experiences? How much of Rocky is you?
A lot of Rocky is me, for better and worse. Which makes it, of course, very funny when I read bad Goodreads reviews who are like, Rocky was just so annoying. I'm like, tell me about it. I know. Yeah, she's annoying to you. Believe me. But anyway, so I wanted to write about 2 different things that aren't really 2 different things. I wanted to write about a family vacation, which is what it is, a week on Cape Cod with, semi-grown kids, aging parents, Rocky in the middle. And I wanted to write about the way that for women, mothers, to some extent, partners, wives, we are always living in this body that seems to be going through so much all the time. So on the one hand, you're like getting ice cream and getting saltwater taffy. And on the other hand, you're like pregnant or milk is leaking through your swimsuit, whatever that experience of those parallel lives.
Sorry, I think the alarm's going off in the back of my house. Oh, no. So I just have to ask you, I know you write a lot about your kids in your books and essays, Ben and Birdie. So are they the inspiration behind the 2 kids in Sandwich?
They are. Yeah. Those kids are very like my kids in pretty much every significant way, to be honest, except that my son, as he's quick to point out, does not have a steady girlfriend. That's the main difference. He was like, wow, Jamie's living the life. That's how my son feels about that character. But other than that, they're very similar to my kids.
So I just have to ask then, do your kids read all this before you get it published? Do they vet everything that you write?
They do. Yes, they do. My daughter reads everything because she's a reader and she's my first and best reader. And I just trust her, with my life. So she's an amazing editor. She has a great eye. She has a great ear for dialogue. So she always reads everything first. My son reads stuff because he's a major sweetheart. And he seems to read it with the interest of telling me that it's the best book he ever read. And that's just, I know he is he's so incredibly sweet. So it's really good. My daughter will be a little more discerning. She'll write cringe next to a joke and I will take it right out. I won't even read it again. I'll just put a line through it. I'm so ashamed,
Do they talk to each other about it? Oh, can you believe mom said this about this or something like that?
I've seen a little of it. My guess is privately they might talk more openly about it. They're very careful with my feelings. I mean, I don't think they would say something bad in front of me about the book. I don't know what they say to each other about it.
But it's so personal. I mean, it's so great, and Jamie and Willa were such great characters. How did you come up with those 2 names? Are they family names
um
or
uh,
favorite names?
there's problems with both names. So Willa turns out to be my brother's ex-girlfriend, which I wasn't really thinking of. And suddenly he was like, "Why did you give that like excellent character my ex-girlfriend's name?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know." And Jamie came about because when Birdie, my daughter, read the first version of it, she was like, "I'm sorry, what's up with this kid's name?" And I was like, "Benji?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's Ben's name." And I was like,
Your
"Oh,
actual son's
great."
name.
She was like, "You have not actually picked an okay disguised name for this character." And I literally thought I had. I was like, "Benji, that's a good name. That really suits this character." Anywho, so I changed it to Jamie, which I thought had a similar vibe.
Yeah. I have a son named Ben too, by the way.
Isn't it a great name? It's such a solid, good name.
And we call him Benji sometimes too.
Isn't it? I'm Benji. I know. It's so good.
So menopause is at the heart of
Yeah.
this book quite a bit,
Yeah.
which is kind of unusual in fiction, in novels. So why did you feel the need to bring this out? And I just wondered, I mean, I've gone through this myself. What has surprised you most about going through menopause?
Gosh, how much time do we have? Kidding, sort of. Okay, I'll tell you this way. Here's what I feel like about menopause. I feel like when you're a kid and you learn about your fertility cycle, let's say you're 10 or you're 11 and we learned it like in sex ed at school.
Right.
I learned it by reading Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, like a normal person
Like
of the
everybody.
70s. But anyway, you learn it like you're this girl and a train is going by and the train is like fertility and you just step gently onto it at one station and then 40 years later you just step off. And it's as if it's like there's the fertility and there's kind of afterwards there's an absence of fertility instead of that basically you're like ejected from the train bleeding and crying and like claw your way down the station,
Yeah.
mauled half to death. So I was surprised that menopause wasn't just like the absence of getting my period. It was like
Right.
its own beast.
Big. Yeah.
Big. Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
it had that I would have so much hormonal kind of teenagery mood swings. I
right.
mean, all of it. And even that I would have feelings about the end of fertility,
Yeah.
just as a tiny example of a thing that surprised me that I'm 55 years old. I'm obviously not going to bear any more babies, but man, it's like I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to, but it's just a little like heartbreaking.
It is. I can totally relate. And I'm guessing that you've heard from a lot of women about this.
I
Do you get
yeah.
messages like constantly saying, "I'm
Yes.
going through this too. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I'm so glad you
Yes.
addressed menopause and the mood swings and everything that goes into
Yes.
it."
I get messages about all kinds of things, and a lot of them are about menopause and people saying, "Now I feel less crazy," which I mean, if
Mm,
I have one goal, it's probably that, for people to feel less crazy.
right.
And people write to me also about the surprising tenderness of parenting grown kids. Those are the
Yeah.
two things I probably hear the most about.
So imagine your daughter. She's probably learning so much now already at a young age about menopause and what awaits her down the road.
I know. I know it. It's really true. Yeah, she's not planning to ever be pregnant, which is just going to be a real game changer in terms of her relationship to that body she
Yeah.
has.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, have you always wanted to be a writer? How did you get started in this
Um,
line of work?
yeah. I mean, There's like moments that are really seminal moments. I learned to write, like actually to write. The same month I learned to read. And these were the absolute like seminal moments of my entire life in a million ways. I was given the keys to the castle and I was just a voracious reader and writer. And I wrote a million little stories that were like, once there was a stick of gum and he didn't want anyone to chew him. Those stories that your kids, right? And you're like, oh my God, do I have to read another of those? And I filled like book after book with these stories. And then at some point it was made clear to me that you couldn't be a writer, that was like saying you were going to be an NBA basketball player. Like it was
Right.
the thing that was reserved for a very special kind of elite group of people who could actually do that and make a living. So I went to graduate school and got a PhD. Let me just tell you, if you don't have to get a PhD, don't get one. This is my advice. Like it took 150
Forever.
years. Yeah, I just got like, I became an old woman basically. I went in my 20s and then like night fell and then my beard grew down to the floor and then I had a PhD and no plans to use it. But while I was getting a PhD, I was so broke that I scrounged around for a lot of different kinds of work, including waitressing, whatever, all the regular kinds of work. But also a friend of mine said, hey, I'm editing this magazine. I'll pay you $500 to write a 1,000 word piece about birdhouses you can make from stuff you already have at home. This is my first paid assignment. And I was like,
I know nothing about that.
I was like, I'm your girl. Like, hang on. And I quickly was like, checking books out of the library. This is pre-internet.
Yeah.
Like how to make a birdhouse, whatever. And then I was a little captivated by the idea of writing for money. And I did a lot of different kinds of writing for a long time. I still do.
Well, I know you were the etiquette columnist for Real Simple. Is that right? For 10 years?
Yes, that's right.
So, how has that played a factor in your life, or does that inform how you write your fiction or live your life at all? I mean, writing an etiquette column for 10 years would be quite something, I would think.
That is such a good way to put it. It was quite something. I did it in this really particular way. And I mean, always I did it this way. I needed everyone in my family to sit with me. And there were always 5 questions. I would read them out loud and I would write down every single thought everybody had about them. So
Really?
Here's my family. I have 2 incredibly ethical kids.
Yeah.
My husband has also a PhD he doesn't use in like a philosophy PhD in ethics. So we would just debate these questions every month. And I would write down everything and I would distill kind of the most important things. I was so addicted to doing it this way that when the kids went to college, I made them Zoom in and do the column with me. I'm not even kidding. I was like, I can't write this by myself. And the thing we learned, all 4 of us, is that basically the hardest thing about being a person is the fact that other people are different from you. This is the takeaway. Every single etiquette question, that's the bottom line. You don't like someone's wind chimes. Your mother-in-law cooks food you hate. Your stepdaughter came to dinner in a bikini. Whatever the things are, that's the heart of it. So we learned a lot about like handling that gracefully.
That must have been fun for the whole family.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And it was a way to talk to the kids about important things that you can't just talk to them about. You know how you always have to like on the sly.
Right.
So we
You
talked
had a reason.
like we ended up covering a lot of ground about, I don't know, excluding people or handling like cliques or when it's okay to hurt someone else's feelings to protect your own, just really big life issues.
So I know sandwich refers to the sandwich generation, but you also write a lot about making sandwiches in the book. So I just would be remiss if I did not ask you what's your favorite sandwich of all time, or what's your family's favorite sandwich of all time?
Okay. There's two. The sandwich Rocky makes in the book that's like tuna with dill and pepperoncini
Yeah.
peppers.
Mhm.
That's everyone's favorite
It
sandwich
sounds
on a
delicious.
baguette. That's what
Yeah.
comes to the beach. You stuff potato chips into it when you get there, not in advance. But my daughter, who doesn't eat meat or fish, her favorite is the like mozzarella, tomatoes, basil,
Right.
the caprese. Yeah, those are the favorites. I
Yummy.
just made them. We were on the Cape, and I
Uh,
made all the sandwiches.
so I always ask writers, was there a particular scene or set of dialogue or a character, anything that was the most challenging to write in this book?
That's such a good question. That's not even what I thought you were asking. Um, there were easy things to write. All the dialogue with the parents and kids, that was all easy. It was mostly
Right.
stuff I'd already just written down verbatim from various family gatherings. Like everything my dad says, that's just stuff my
You just
dad
write
has
it down.
said. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I write everything down. He's always like, "You gonna write that down?" And I'm like, "Maybe. We'll see." Um, the hardest stuff, the book's a little split between really lively
Mhm.
dialogue amongst the family and then these very unfunny scenes of Rocky reflecting
Right.
on various kinds of heartbreak she has
Mhm.
endured. And those scenes were the hardest to write. I mean,
They
they
were
tapped into the hardest stuff and they were not funny and
mhm.
they were not, and there was no dialogue. And those were just a little challenging.
So it seems like in the book, Nick is a dream husband,
Oh my
um,
God.
in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways,
Maybe not every way.
not
Um,
every way.
is that based on your own
Yeah.
experiences?
Yes.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
I am married to like a 99% dreamboat. And the only point off is the thing that Rocky's mad at her husband about, which is like a slight like performed denseness about the way people's feelings work.
Right.
And this I don't think is unique to me in my marriage to a man. I think that is the rallying cry of a lot of straight women, is that kind of, the panic as soon as someone starts expressing a feeling.
Right. Right.
Where you're like, uh-oh, I am being summoned to do something and I don't know what it is. But as I've gotten older, I've really just tried to appreciate that that is not everybody's wheelhouse.
Right. It's funny when you said 99%. When my husband asked me to marry him, he said, "I'm 99% sure you're the woman I wanna
Oh
marry."
my gosh!
That was the
Do
proposal.
you
So,
do you bring it up always? Are you
yeah, I
like,
do.
what
Yeah.
how's the 1% going? Is it
I
getting
guess it's
bigger,
going okay. We're
smaller?
still married. It's been 32 years. So, yeah. But
That's so good,
strangest
Shelley.
proposal ever. Um, so just a few more questions here. I have to say, when you were talking about the going away on this week's vacation, and I said I had three 20 somethings, and we just did a week outside Asheville, North Carolina, with the whole
Oh,
family a couple weeks ago.
heavenly.
And I'm in my head, I'm like, this is going to be the most perfect week ever. We're going to play board games every night. We're going to talk about everything, et cetera, et cetera. And then we end up watching Office reruns or something for the night. So, I mean, do you ever you do this trip every year, I gather, right?
Yes, we
Yeah. I
do.
mean, do you ever feel pressure that this is going to have to be the perfect family vacation? Or no, you're just so used to it by
I
now.
have really It's so funny. I think that I'm a little over that. I mean, I
Good.
really do. I remember I remember when the kids were really little. This may even have been the first time we went to that house on the Cape. And I was packing, and Michael, my husband, saw me put a novel in my bag, and he was like, "Oh, what kind of trip are you imagining?" Like we had like a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and here I am just imagining that I'm going to be on the beach reading. The
Yeah.
way that it's not actually the trip you pictured. I don't think I have that anymore. I think that
Good.
I'm very open. I understand, again, this coming back to that etiquette thing, that everyone's dream vacation is not the same. Like my
Right.
kids' favorite day on the Cape in the week we go still is the day it rains.
Yeah, I could get that from the book. Yeah,
They want it to rain, and then they want to not go to the beach, and they want to like eat potato chips in bed and then play a long board game. And I totally get that. Like
yeah.
I'm much, but I know, oh my God, that feeling of like, this is not the trip I imagined. I have had years of that, or somebody gets sick, or I mean, there's so many things that go wrong
Yeah,
on a vacation,
right.
so
Yeah.
many things. And the way money is just leaking out of your pores, and you have to just like try to be calm about it because
Yeah.
freaking out is not actually going to make it any cheaper.
I
Yeah.
know. We took the kids to Maine a couple of years ago, and we were paying like $25 for a lobster roll for the 5
Oh,
of us. I was
oh,
going, "Oh my god."
oh my God. It was lunch and it was $150.
Yeah,
I know.
what's happening
Lunch.
here?
I know. I really just try to like Zen center myself about it and be like, we're going to have a massive credit card bill. If I freak everybody out about it, it's still going to be a massive
The
credit
mess.
card bill.
Right.
Like, just do not make
Yeah.
everybody like order the cocktail that's $1 cheaper.
So what is it about Cape Cod that you love so much?
Mm. I really love a lot of different things about the Cape. It turns out we have learned about ourselves that we're not like island people. We have
Right.
been to Block Island, we've been to Nantucket, the Vineyard. Always love it. Always happy to be invited. Just letting everyone know. Always game to go. But I have this kind of if I need a ferry to leave,
Yeah.
I have a kind of claustrophobic feeling
Right.
about that. Like, it makes me feel like I'm going to need to leave, but I won't be able to because the ferry's not leaving at that particular moment. So the Cape does not have ferries, and it does have like mini golf and restaurants and stuff,
Yeah.
which we're very into. And it has these incredibly wild beaches. So for us, it's just like all of the best of everything besides
Right.
the hydrangeas and the roses. And I mean, we just drive around and I can't take how gorgeous it is. I just can't even stand it. And we look at real estate listings, which is like, ha ha ha, as if, but I'm always like, oh, we should buy this house. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, mom, let's buy that house, for $20 million. Anyway, I just love everything about it.
So
Except the
just a
traffic.
few more questions. I mean, so
Yeah,
the members
please.
of the Girlfriend Book Club wanted to
Yeah.
know what authors inspire you, and is there anything that you've read this year that you could recommend to the rest of us? Some
Oh
great
my
book?
gosh. So many. I have like a panic when I get asked about books just because I have so many favorite
Okay.
authors and books. But
Right.
I am a person who pre-orders every Ann Patchett book. That is just true. And I know I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
And I save it for when I can be totally absorbed in it. And that might be on vacation, or it might really just be like if I read it at night during the week.
Yeah.
So I read Tom Lake, and
That was
I
our book
couldn't.
Girlfriend Book Club pick
Oh,
last November, and
could
she
you
joined us. Yeah.
even? Oh,
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
was great.
that book about older kids
Yeah.
and the histories, the way kids ask you about they want to know the history. I loved it so much. I love Miriam Taves. I don't know if you guys have read her. She wrote a book called
No,
All My
that one, no.
Puny Sorrows. She's written a bunch of books, but that's my favorite one.
Wow.
And I was just telling somebody that I don't know if you've read anything by Samantha Irby. She's a comedian
No, no.
/ memoirist, and she writes a lot about this is not going to sound like appealing, but she writes a ton about her own Crohn's disease, but in this hilarious way. And so she's my person I read to be inspired about how to write in a funny way about like a failing body. I love her stuff. So those are just some off the top of my head thoughts.
And also they wanted to know what your writing process is like. I mean, do you get up
Hmm.
in the morning and write for 4 hours at a time, or or what's your process like?
Yes. It's sort of a mix of things. Before I write a book, I say, like, I've written so many books. I mean, I've written a lot of books. I've only written 2 novels and I'm working on a 3rd, but all 3 novels have had the same process, which is that I spend years like cogitating,
Mhm.
like thinking, writing down everything that I think of related to the book, transcribing crazy stuff my dad says, whatever it is. I write it all down. I have pages and pages of notes. Then when I think I'm ready to write, I write every day for like 2 or 3 hours. And it's first thing, it's over caffeinated. I get like manically caffeinated
Yeah,
and I write for 2 to 3 hours every day. And then the rest of the day is all the other kinds of work that doesn't
yeah,
require that
right.
level of kind of focus. And I give myself a sticker on a sticker chart every time I write 500 words. I self-administer
In
a
a day
sticker chart
or in a
in
day?
in a day.
A
If I
day.
write 500 words, I get a sticker. If I write 1,000, I get either 2 stickers or
Stickers?
1 really good sticker. It's like a potty training chart. It is the most depressing thing. Every time my kids see it, they're like, "Oh my God, mom, like,
Mom,
is
what are you
this
doing?
really how we're doing it?" And I'm like, "Yeah. You know, if I smoked cigarettes, I would give myself a cigarette, but I
Yeah.
don't. So I'm stuck with stickers."
So what did your parents think about this book, Sandwich? Did they love it?
They loved it.
They
Yeah,
did?
I mean, for all of how kind of bratty Rocky can be about her parents, I think they understood that it was like a love letter to
Yeah,
them.
it really was. I mean, you
Yeah,
said to your
that
mother at one stage, you looked at her and said, "I just love you so much," in one of the chapters. That was so sweet.
yeah, I think that was not lost on them. I mean, my dad quibbled with some of the representations of him, even though he admitted they were accurate. Um, but I think they were thrilled. I mean,
Appreciate it.
yeah, I think, I think that it hews close to life, but it is just a love letter to her kids, to her
Yeah,
parents, to ultimately to her partner. So I think everyone felt that I
and
just
you dedicated
like,
it to your parents too, which was
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think they were thrilled.
yeah. So just 2 more questions. So everybody you just said you're working on a 3rd novel, so everybody wants to know what are you working on next?
Um,
Maybe you can't say a lot.
I can't say a lot because I'm weird and superstitious, and I'm worried that if I talk about it too much, I won't actually write it. The characters will be familiar because
Okay.
they're always basically a version of the same character. And yeah, it's another story about a woman in her mid-50s. Surprise! Just a random woman, no one in particular.
With grown kids.
Yeah, with grown kids. And her father lives in an in-law apartment
Mhm.
attached to her house, and she's going through some different things that I will leave at that. Not to be mysterious.
When
I
will
just
that be out? Any idea?
well, I haven't written it. I
Right,
haven't
okay. So
sold it, so I have no idea. I'm hoping it'll be done by the end of the winter.
oh, good,
And
okay.
so then I don't know, a year and a half after that,
Yeah.
maybe?
So a little while, yeah.
A little while. Yeah.
So one more question. So The Girlfriend is all about female friendship, celebrating
Yes.
female friendship, especially as we grow older. So I just always like to ask authors, I mean, what do you like to do with your female
Oh my
friends?
gosh. I like to do everything with my female friends. I quit drinking, which is such a bummer because really the thing I love to do with them is
I
drink.
was joking.
Which so that's off the table, which is very sad for everybody. Um, but I really this is such an empty nest thing, and it's going to sound
Yeah,
so weird if you still have kids at home, but which probably most of your girlfriends don't. But I have been playing tennis with my friends, which
good.
is so hilarious to me and makes me feel so fancy about myself. Like it's such a country club sport, and I like show up in my sambas, whatever. Um, so we play tennis, I run and walk, and we have dinner together and we go to the movies. I mean, I really feel like those are
Yeah.
like people I'm dating. I like we go on dates. That's what I feel like. Like we have planned dates and
Yeah.
I'm really excited about them.
You haven't gone down the pickleball route then, right? You're not playing pickleball?
We're not playing pickleball.
Okay.
No, and we have the tennis players' disdain for pickleball. That is
Oh,
required. It's
okay.
mandatory.
Right.
The disdain is mandatory. But secretly, I have played once with my husband and kids, and it was incredibly fun. So
It is fun, right?
I may end up with a secret pickleball life.
Well, thank you so much. We're out of time. Catherine Newman,
Shelley,
such a
thank
joy to talk to
you.
you. If you
Such a
haven't, I think almost
pleasure.
everybody's read it, but recommend it to your friends too. Sandwich by Catherine Newman, and we'll look forward to whatever that next novel will be whenever it comes out. I just want to tell everybody in the book club next month, October 15th, we have Kate Quinn joining us to talk about The Briar Club. That's our next book. And please stay on the Girlfriend Book Club page because I'll be posting some conversation starters tonight so you guys can share what you thought about this fabulous book. So thank you so much, Catherine. It was a pleasure
Thank you,
meeting you.
Shelley. Pleasure
And
was mine.
best of luck. Thanks. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.